Hi, I'm Brett Davis, the editor-in-chief of Inside Unmanned Systems magazine. We are here at the Autonomous Media booth talking to Mr. Aaron Pierce, the founder and CEO of Pierce Aerospace, which is known for remote ID and combat ID. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Aaron, if you would, just sort of give us a little background about the company and where it came from.
Yeah, so company's been around for a while. We've been pioneering remote identification since about 2017 now. Working heavily on developing some of the early prototypes, experimenting. We've been working with U.S. military on it. Originally back in 2018 is when we first started winning Air Force contracts for remote ID, and then started integrating those early prototypes into different government systems, command and control systems, counter-UAS systems, common operating pictures, and really diving deep into some of the exploration of it and really stressing those and getting to where we're today, which is where we've got 11 different U.S. government customers under contract and have, earlier this year deployed it to support national security operations. And just this Monday, we are excited to announce that our remote ID broadcast modules, our beacons, are now available, and super excited to get those out there.
So for companies that acquire those, that gives them entree into quite a few systems, I would assume. I mean, they're able to interoperate pretty widely.
Yeah, so we make the beacons that go on the aircraft. The ones that we announced are available for pre-order now on Monday. Those are for aftermarket attachment to the aircraft, so they can come into compliance with the FAA Road ID rule that goes into effect on September 16th. We also do receivers, though, that passively monitor the airspace and can push those ID messages in, so that you've got a sense of what's going on in the airspace, which really helps out with both the unmanned traffic management side and the counter-UAS side. So depending upon the need, we've got a couple different things to help out with some different remote ID solutions.
Okay. So I know a lot of people are familiar with remote ID in terms of commercial systems, being a fairly recent requirement, but let's talk about the importance of it for military uses.
Yeah. So for defense and security needs, they need to see what's up in the air as well and confirm that positive identification of the aircraft. I would think of it similar to how defense uses ADS-B. They want to make sure they've got positive ID, make sure that's not a civilian aircraft, and have that data feed into their, whatever their system is, whatever their rules of engagement are, to make sure that they're only looking for those uncooperative, potentially hostile aircraft.
Okay. And I mean, this is sort of the linchpin of counter-UAS efforts, right? You have to know
know what you're looking at, confirm positive ID, before you can really do anything with that counter-UAS. So that's where we really come into play as kind of a baseline to layer into whatever else may be incorporated into that counter-UAS picture. And our role is really to help those other, the partners that make the other systems and the end users, help them get to better decision-making in that mission.
And you've recently been expanding internationally. I mean, you've announced some in India and some other countries, which don't come to mind for me, but I'm sure you know. Tell us a little bit about that international expansion and the importance of remote ID for that as well.
Absolutely. So regulation and policy are evolving internationally as well as in the United States. We've been a part of the ASTM remote identification group that's been standardizing remote ID from the aircraft side, and really been working to help share that message and share that capability internationally. So we earlier this year announced a relationship with Sky Air Mobility to work with them to provide them with remote identification in India. And we also earlier this year announced a partnership with Pacific Aerospace Consulting so that we could work with them to bring remote identification to the Australian and New Zealand markets.
Does this sort of help with kind of a standardization?
Absolutely.
Aspect?
There's a standard, of course, but we need to make sure that we can get those capabilities across to all of those international markets. So that's our effort there, is to really make sure that we can get those receivers out there to help monitor their airspaces for their use cases, both that dual use civilian and security use case, and to also have a capability for those aircraft in those markets to come into compliance, whether it be aftermarket or future.
Okay. So for those who don't know, Aaron also did a 2-hour workshop here at Xponential, helping other companies who might want to work with the government get started. So we are not going to we're not going to go through that again. But I was wondering if you could give for our listeners and viewers just a quick, if I was a small company wanting to work with the government, specifically the military, what's kind of my first step that I should take?
Yeah, absolutely. So I did a workshop called, Dual Use Startups and how to spell DoD and other acronyms. So had some fun with it, really made it interactive, and there's a ton of different entry points. The key thing is if you're commercial already, to really explore and see if you can make an adaptation of your commercial product or solution to fit a military end user need. And that could be almost anything. So DoD doesn't just have, sharp, pointy things or sticks. There's way more than weapons, and I think that's a misconception that a lot of small businesses have if they've not worked with the Department of Defense before. And they've got HR systems, they've got paperwork system, they got everything under the sun that you can think of, just like any other marketplace has. That exists in the DoD as well, and there's opportunities for disruption to make the DoD end users' life and job easier and help on costs as well. So they're always looking for those innovative types of things. So a really good place to start is with AFWERX and the SBIR and STTR open topics. I've worked with AFWERX years ago as an entrepreneur in resident with the first Techstars Air Force Accelerator program, and through that there's a kind of a new philosophy of there's a lot of wonderful innovation out there that's not necessarily getting captured yet, and by making open topics in the SBIR and STTR program, that really allows things that they may not even be thinking about yet to get an entrant into that DoD marketplace. The key is to make sure that you can get buy-in from an end user and a customer and get that product market fit, just like any other market. So you can get in early with a phase 1 SBIR, but you need to capture that end user to really be able to drive this forward, just like any other type of marketplace out there.
So don't be daunted by it and get in where you fit in. Right?
Yeah, don't be daunted by it. It's not easy, but entrepreneurship isn't easy. So the first thing I do whenever I'm mentoring a prospectful or early entrepreneur is really discover if entrepreneurship is something that they want to do. And that's a key self-discovery question first.
Well, that's a big hurdle right there.
That
right?
in itself, okay. Absolutely. That's fundamental number one is, do you want to run a company? And that's very different from working on a technology as an engineer or a technician and focusing on what that is versus the diving into the wearing about 12 different hats at the same time. And a key thing to also keep in is that it's extraordinarily rewarding to go and do business with U.S. government and to provide those solutions to a warfighter as well. But if you're running a dual-use company, especially at a startup level, you're effectively running two companies at the same time.
Something to definitely keep in mind.
Yes.
All right, so that's the short course right there.
Yes.
So is there anything else we need to know about remote ID? You may have some news coming soon, but we can't talk about it.
We're
keep an eye
eagerly awaiting to share some news that we've some of the work that we've done with our U.S. government customers and partners. Very excited about that. We do have, like I mentioned, the beacons are available for ordering now. We want to make sure that folks that have invested in fleets already can continue to sustain and use those fleets after the September 16th deadline. So happy to provide them with a really high performance, beacon that we built with professionals in mind. We're drone pilots ourselves, so we really did a lot of thought and customer discovery on what someone would be looking for out of a beacon to meet that requirement so that they can continue to operate profitably. So we'll have our receivers come online for commercial availability later this year as well. So as that date approaches, we will certainly keep you updated.
Sounds good. So get your beacons and get ready for more.
Yes.
All right. Thanks for coming by today.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.